Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We're going to do a fairly fast video this morning. A little bit of a sunrise thing. We're on the docks looking at people's boats at the marina. Um, we've been out overnight a couple times and we're still working on this, the monkey, and getting the sleeping arrangements really nice. I talk often when I'm trying to talk to people about enlightenment and woo. I talk about fundamental human rights. And, the phrase human rights causes people to get all up in arms nowadays because it's been used as a political kind of thing about, housing is a human right, healthcare is a human right. All these things that you want society to do for you are human rights. And that's not what I talk about when I talk about a fundamental human right. And this actually really gets down into the core of, well, living on a boat or living in a tent or living on the road, or living out of a backpack. And these fundamental rights, these fundamental capabilities of a human are not something that you demand of another person. They're something that you require of yourself the option to do. And anything that restricts that is almost like unnatural, especially if it involves humans, just because it's a restriction or a change. I often talk about how one of the most basic human rights, capabilities, natural rights. Let's use natural rights because it's a little less of a landmine. Is the right to get the F out of Dodge, the right to leave, the right to move, the right to travel, and that's pretty fundamental. If you're not in a good spot, if things are not going well, if things are not pleasant, if it's just if the weather's changing, if whatever reason, the right to move, to just go. There's no natural order to borders or political states or fences or anything. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying that they don't serve a purpose. And we have a much larger global population than we did when there were 2 million humans wandering around, you know, um, living off the fat of the land. There's a lot more of us. But I'm saying that this is a fundamental, basic, natural right, and that what what you need to look at is how you can maximize that on your individual level. Another one, of course, is production. And people think of this in terms of labor theory or Marxist economics or even Smithian economics, where labor, capital, and production and consumption are all these intertwined mathematical thing that somehow forms a moral compass. And I'm not talking about that. Look, if you go out and you hunt, let's say you go fishing, we're in the water here. You go fishing and you catch a fish, nice big fat catfish. You have started the process of production of a meal. Okay, you have that fundamental natural right to go get that catfish, cut it up, cook it, eat it. That's a production. You are producing food. A lot of people really get stuck on this and think that you are consuming a resource. And it's not, we're not there. We're not talking about externalities. We're not talking about cost to society. We're not talking about labor of society to run a fish farm or whatever you're going to go on about. The fundamental, basic, natural right here is the right to produce. You find a tree branch in the forest and you make a bow. Okay, it's a little more complicated than that, but just bear with me. That is a production. It's a natural right. Everyone is going to argue that branch belongs to somebody and is a resource and is a consumption. And I'm not talking about that. And you're wrong. I mean, you're just flat out, you're wrong. That's not a natural order. Fundamental aspect of nature and humanity. Man, even the word nature is rough here. that right to production, that right to self-defense, that right to breathe. I also feel like there's a fundamental, basic human right to sleep securely. And now that one's a little complicated because I don't mean that the cave hyena can't come and eat you in the middle of the night. That's not a violation of natural rights. That's part of what you have to do as a human, is produce your safety and plan for your self-defense and stuff. What I mean is that it is a violation of the natural right for other humans to deny you the basic security of sleep. And that one's a little hard to actually work with and define, but it gets really important when you're on the road, when you're a nomad, when you're trying to figure out, can I anchor here overnight and sleep? Is someone going to mess with me? Is someone going to try to take me away? You get that a lot with parking. One of the big stressors for vehicle-based nomads is the knock. That 2 o'clock in the morning, wake you up, scare you, make you deal with police or go to jail or get a parking ticket or your van gets towed or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's just a friendly knock and a move along, we don't allow this here. Sometimes it gets way worse. And that is a violation of a natural right. It's really hard to describe, but there it is. And so this is what I talk about quite often when I'm talking about living on a boat, living in a yurt, living in a tent, living out of a backpack, walking, the Appalachian Trail, whatever it is you're doing, living in a van. That safe place to sleep. You need to be able to sleep, poop, eat, and move around. And these are kind of the things. This is one of the things about getting stuck in a non-moving situation where you can't move, living on a boat, is that you're in something that's supposed to move, and you're living a lifestyle that's supposed to have at least the possibility of moving your home periodically. It's like living in a trailer that's on wheels, not a trailer that you park and put on cinder blocks. You're supposed to be able to move, and that's kind of a, that's kind of a thing. It's kind of a trap. If you can't move and you're thinking about it that way, that house, that boat has to become disposable. You have to center your sense of security on something else. If the boat does move, you should probably, be ready to switch boats at the drop of a hat, because stuff happens. But that's different, a different conversation. That safe, secure place to sleep thing, if you're on a boat, quite often that means that you need to be able to move. And you may have a couple weeks to figure that out. You may have a couple months to figure that out. A marina might be going under and getting developed into a house, shoreside condos or something. There's always stuff, but something to consider. And this is one reason we go smaller and more mobile and easier to fix and easier to run over and over and over again with boats. Now I'm the crazy guy who's going to end up on some 25-foot Cape Dory Mark II, and I'm going to have oar locks, and I'm going to have a pair of 16-foot oars, because under no circumstances will I be unable to move, because that's like a sense of security for me. You don't have to go that far. I love my engines, but what if the engine dies and there's no wind and this and that, You don't have to be me. But I think, it's kind of weird, because I feel like this gets into a very core civilizational stress that people, even people who own their homes, they're subject to government taxes, and the government will take that away from you. Even if you don't have a huge loan and a huge debt and the worries of foreclosure, like there's a fundamental, basic rights violation there. And I don't mean this in a legal sense. It's just, this is what it is to be human. You should be able to sleep. You should be able to produce stuff like make a pair of shoes, make your dinner, and you should be able to move freely. Just stuff to think about. What's this all got to do with boats? Well, we're about to go on an adventure where we're going to anchor in a lot of places. And, to a large extent, we have to figure out how that works. There's, local stuff that people want to stop you from doing. We're not going up to Annapolis right now, but Annapolis has a city permit to anchor. So you have to go to a city office to spend the night when you're cruising through. Like, I don't know. This is what I'm told. I have no desire to do that. And, whatever. So, stuff like that. This is your morning talk. I'm going to go for a morning walk. And maybe I'll jump back in the dinghy and go for a morning row. Stay sideways.